On today's episode of Runner's Mouth, we're discussing all things super shoes. What are they? Who are they for? When should you use them? And how much they've changed competitive running and the industry as a whole. All right, let's dive right into it. Gil, what's a super shoe?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. You know, it's everyone's favorite topic right now in run specialty, it seems. So super shoe, just think of it as a combination of technology to enhance a runner in their efficiency. So it's not necessarily helping them specifically be faster, but in terms of efficiency and return of energy, you have shoes now that are, there's two ways to look at this. You have carbon fiber plates that are in these super shoes, and then you now have a combination of a lighter, more responsive foam, right? Many look at the foam. It's typically a PIBA-based foam, which is super lightweight and bouncy, and it's going to return much more energy compared to your traditional EVA foam. Back in the day, we saw changes in your traditional EVA foam when Adidas introduced the Boost technology, and so that was really huge in run specialty because energy return, and they had these two spheres that would bounce more, and so that was kind of like that first introduction. But then we started loading up into the stack height, right? And so what I have in front of me here is the Nike Alpha Fly Next Percent. It's the closest thing that we have right now in industry, and there's reasons why. I'll show you this, but you'll see that in the stack height, right, there's tons of foam, right? And there's been all sorts of legal parameters that have been tested in recent years as to how much you can introduce. And of course, Nike has like the Air Zoom pods that you see here, as well as what you'll see, the Fly plate. This is the carbon fiber plate. And so that's pretty much the super shoe. It's a combination of a stiffer plate embedded within the EVA, the foam itself, to get you going at a higher energy return, right? And it also has this lighter, more advanced foam that's going to be bouncier and return more energy. That's going to help you in terms of efficiency. It doesn't make you specifically faster, but it does, technology-wise, help you become more efficient, which has led to faster times in long distance running. So that is a super shoe in a nutshell, essentially.
Yeah, that was a good way to put it. So I worked at Fleet Feet about 10 years ago, well, a little over 10 years ago, 2014 to 2016. And I remember seeing the Boost and all that technology. And again, this is before super shoes were in the mainstream in retail, but I can't help see the stack height in shoes and without thinking about Hoka. This just came to me, like, how much did Hoka, like just the Clifton, how much is that stack height? Did they take that stack height, that rocker idea and put it into, like, did Nike see them doing that and put that in not to put you on the spot
no, I'm ready,
of this
yeah.
question, but when I see that how big that stack height is, I can't help but think about Hoka.
Well, you talked about the rocker geometry, and that's a common thing that you'll see in these shoes. There's other examples. I have the Alpha Fly Next Percent too, and you can see that it does have a rocker motion to it. I would say that when the Clifton was introduced and Hoka was launching these shoes, it was met with resistance because it was a clunky shoe and you had a lot of foam. But the thing that Hoka was doing, and at the time, you mentioned that time frame, shoes were switching where they were really worried about the heel to toe drop off, essentially, and kind of what the difference between your height at the heel and toe box, where you sat in the shoe. And so your standard shoe was at like 12 millimeters. Hoka and all these other shoes, all these other companies started then innovating and kind of flattening the heel to toe kind of ratio and making it flatter because, again, Born to Run and all of these different like trends that were happening at the time, midfoot running, which is something that I like transitioned from heel strike to midfoot. And so that's that whole stack height thing. I'd venture to say, yeah, Hoka definitely created kind of an innovative step in the right direction for run specialty technology as a whole, because we started seeing more shoes.
Now they all look like that in a way. In a way, they look like if you knocked someone out, they only knew what a Hoka was, and then you show them the shoes today, they're like, oh, they're all Hokas.
Yeah.
If they didn't know any other technology.
even Nike Vomero Premium, their newest shoe, is being, hinted, like addressed as a long run / recovery shoe. And that's a big boy too. I have 2 pairs of those. I love them. Nike's done a little bit more innovation by adding those Air Zoom pods in addition to that. But same concept. You have a very thick, midsole of foam, of a
Beefy
high
shoe.
energy return, high cushion foam that's helping runners be more efficient. And one of the things I had in my notes was that these super shoes, think of them as a legal performance enhancer. And we'll talk a little bit more about the legal because we'll use asterisk.
Yeah.
But that's really what they are, is a legal performance enhancer, to the point where we've seen some shoes be outlawed by NCAA athletics in competition because some of them don't meet the legal parameters for performance enhancing. But, companies get around it and they shift technology, and it's essentially an arms race. We've entered an arms race of super shoes across all these companies. Every company is producing a similar shoe, and they're competing for the lightest, fastest shoe that they can get on a professional runner and see who hits first, which we'll talk in detail about some of the super shoes that recently did amazing work in the London Marathon. But
yeah, definitely.
I mean, it's crazy. But to answer your question, every company has introduced a piece of technology that is innovating the world and kind of leveling the company up in terms of what barriers can we break or push when it comes to a super shoe.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's changed the game, that's for sure. Let's do a little bit of, I'm sure people listen to this podcast, most of them are familiar with super shoe. They definitely are now because of your quick synopsis of them. But a little bit of history in terms of just the industry, starting with, and, going back, because, again, we've lived through it. We follow the industry, but it is interesting to go back and be like, wait, when were they? Because I know my timeline with them of like when I started hearing about them, but it actually goes back a little bit further than I thought with the 2016 Olympics. Did you want to talk a little bit about that when they were released? And obviously the Sub 2 project is a huge moment in the super shoe boom.
Of course, professional athletes see a shoe that's about to get launched first. You'll often see shoes that are either unbranded or very monotone colors that a company will push out to get to their athletes. Often they're testing many months before that, leading up to competition. So what you'll see on race day for some of these competitions, a lot of people actually focus their content creation on social media on spotting the next prototype. Very similar to how car companies will launch their next car. You'll see that it's got like patterns on it that make it unrecognizable. And so like when BMW, Toyota, etc. are launching their next, racing inspired car, you'll see it on the Autobahns or you see it on the tracks overseas. And people will take pictures and spot it because it's very monotone. You can't really tell what it is. It's not branded. Same concept. But what we saw, the first major release to the public, was the Sub 2 project that Nike had with Kipchoge. And it was a goal to break 2. So they did a phenomenal job advertising, this shoe that was going to be worn by Kipchoge, who's, the fastest marathoner at the time, which is insane to say that he's no longer that.
I know,
now,
it's crazy.
Right?
He was always the GOAT
insane.
of it.
Also insane that it's almost 10 years ago, which is crazy.
I know. I remember waking up and watching that because it was overseas and you had to wake up super early to watch it, middle of the night, literally to watch it.
I was actually in Germany at the time.
You were in Germany,
So I was watching it. I got to watch it live. But it was crazy, right? Like it was one of the first times where so many people had gotten together to watch one person run 26.2 miles to try and break the record, which it did not happen, but it set the foundation for these shoes, right? Because Nike had released the Vaporfly, and so this Vaporfly shoe was the first super shoe essentially that was kind of created. It was, it was the first shoe that combined the carbon plate. Nike uses technology. I mentioned PIBA before. Nike's version of this is Zoom X. Again, ultra high energy return, very aggressive rocker kind of mentality. And I believe it was called the Vaporfly 4%, which came from a lab tested improvement that gave running like efficiency improvement by 4%, according to the test results. And so again, Kipchoge, super elite, super efficient runner already. here's this weapon, right? We're going to give you a weapon. Go get it. And David, I'm not to put you on the spot, but he narrowly missed it. He did not break.
Like 30 seconds.
Like he was
30,
off by
yeah,
30 seconds.
Right,
is
yeah.
insane.
But I watched it live too. It sucks I wasn't in Germany. I had to wake up like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. here, East Coast time. But yeah, 2 hours and 30 seconds. He just missed it by his first attempt.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is insane, right? Because I think the after effects of what happened after this, right? This shoe gave immediate results right there and then. Whether we could prove it or not, the fact is whatever the record was before versus what he ran in this shoe was like groundbreaking because immediate results. And then on top of that, like there's been super fast racing shoes before, right? And I wouldn't say that the exposure was like, oh, this shoe made this runner run faster. That was never really a topic of conversation until this shoe. And on top of that, this was the first shoe that combined the rocker geometry, stack height, carbon fiber plate, and this new type of lighter, more efficient foam. There's been other variations of something similar, but never a combination of the two. And so that really kind of set the foundation for every other company to really be put on notice. Once Nike did it, they're like, all right, well, we got to get on board. And, you mentioned this in our, when we were prepping for this episode today, but while he didn't get the sub 2 with Nike specifically, he then wore an upgraded version of the Nike shoe, but for another event. What was that event again?
Yeah, it was the Ineos 159 challenge in 2019, like right before COVID, and he ran 159.40. So he ended up breaking 2.
Which is incredible.
Crazy.
and from that point, I would say like we really saw what I call the arms race across super shoes, because you had to this point, right? We've spoken about the Alpha Fly. Alpha Fly introduced the Air Zoom pods in addition to PIBA type foam, fly plate, etc. We also had the Adidas Adizero Pro 3, so that they brought in carbon rods instead of a plate, which was something new. We have Metaspeed from Asics. They really started getting into the Stride specific designs alongside Saucony Endorphin Pro 4. They're really focused on enhancing the foam, making it lighter and more efficient, but also really in line with the geometry of the runner and focusing in on that stride and the specific, kind of motion that a runner needs to have to be most efficient at this level. But the big thing about that is that, again, and we'll talk about this in later detail, but the shoes themselves are not going to make you fitter, right? So like for the average runner that is out there, I consider myself an average runner currently. It's not going to make you a faster, fitter runner. It will, however, help you to a certain extent, which we'll talk about, be more efficient, which over the course of a long distance could reduce your times per mile, right? You're more efficient, you're feeling better, you're performing faster. It does equate to faster times. And I would say that the technology that we're seeing right now is 100% a direct reflection of the incredibly insane times that we're seeing in industry. I mean, we're seeing 2 guys go sub 2 legally, break the marathon record, which was insane to watch in London. We're seeing high school phenoms break all sorts of records. The 800-meter indoor champion for the U.S. is a teenager that isn't even in college yet, right? He's insane. We have all sorts of Penn Relays records that went down. I think it was 6 or 7 of them that went down at Penn Relays that we witnessed in person. We're seeing all sorts of records across the country. Even from there was he was sub 15-year-old. He was like 13, 14 years old, broke the half marathon.
He just over the weekend, over this past weekend,
absolutely
at the end of April.
Metrics that we're seeing.
It's a tool.
It's
like you said, a weapon, and when used right, it's yours for the taking.
Right.
Honestly, I think this is a perfect segue to talk about the dangers of the super shoes.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit. You know a lot about the tech, which is fantastic. Give me and you even have some personal stories like your cousin. I don't know if we want to go into that, but I think it's a great example of the not to do's. So yeah, give me a little bit of perspective of the dangers and why the average runner shouldn't just be grabbing these off the shelf and going in for a 5 mile run in them, and why there's
Absolutely.
a time and a place for these shoes.
So I will preface by saying that user experience varies. I will give my opinion, but as a brand, BDRC Runner's Mouth Podcast, our goal is to provide you with real-time information relevant to you. Our focus is to debunk the BS that you see on social media, and that's the problem that we're seeing right now in the industry. Is that on social media you will have anybody who can create a following talk with no expertise whatsoever, simply based on their experience or whatever the company gave them as a shoe, and they'll recommend things blindly without covering the hidden details that exist behind these super shoes, right? So all sorts on social media, you're going to find, and even a quick Google search, what's the best running shoe? And you'll see this pop up, right? And so what's crazy is that that's social media is kind of like an engine to accelerate knowledge in a wonderful way, but it can also get the wrong kind of information out there. And so what I mean by that is, I'll share a personal story. I had a cousin of mine reach out to me asking, hey, what's the best running shoe? And I always say, and here at BDRC, we always say, you should always get fitted for running shoes, right? Because everyone's gait is different. Everyone's foot strike is different. And we'll talk about this in later episodes. But you should get fitted to understand the best type of running shoe for you. But also understand that this super shoe here was not designed to be worn for a jog or a daily run or a 3 miler. It wasn't. That's fact. This shoe was not designed for that. But I can't tell you how many times at our local run club here in Durham or across everywhere I've been, I've seen people that are running in these for a jog. And they'll post about them on social media that they're running in these for a jog. Now, quick fact check on this. These retail for over $250. You're going to spend over $250 for this shoe, and it's really only designed to be worn for probably 100 total miles. It'll probably last you 100 total. The beauty about this foam is that it's super light, super fun. It wears down very quickly because it's a racing shoe. It was designed for you to wear in races, specifically the marathon. Now, we can get into the details on what your left and right limit is for distance, right? I am not going to sit here and tell you that you can't wear this for a 5K, but it wasn't designed for that, right? And I can tell you based on personal story, I ran a 5K getting back into things, and I wasn't as efficient as I needed to be, and I was wearing a super shoe equivalent, and it was too squishy for me. It was, the energy return on it for the foot strike at 5K wasn't what it was designed for. And my buddy, our mutual friend who works at On, told me, yeah, probably not the shoe you want to be wearing for 5K. But what I mean by that is that the danger is that there's a lot of misinformation. This super shoes are not designed for daily wear, daily runs. They're not. You can use them in tempo workouts at the design distance for your goal, marathon, half marathon, etc. You can use them for workouts, but to say that you're going to use them on a zone 2 jog, they're not designed for that. One, you're wasting your money because they're extremely expensive. And for the same price, you could get probably 2 pairs of a good trainer that is designed for the pace and distance you're doing on a daily run, fitted to you specifically, because we don't do fit and wear for a super shoe. This is a flat for a reason. You just put it on and you go. And so the danger is what we're seeing with some of the lawsuits, which you'll cover here in a bit, but people are getting injured. You're wasting your money. You're increasing your chances of injury. And there's probably some of you out there that are going to disagree with me and go, Gil, I run in these all the time and they're great. Hey man, that's amazing for you. But for the majority of people that are just looking to get out there and get fitter and get better at running, this wasn't designed for you. And that's a hot take. I know people are going to be mad and possibly kick back on whether or not me saying that shoe was designed for them or not. And I'm being real with you. Hate it or love it. That shoe wasn't designed for you. Hell, it wasn't even designed for me where I'm currently at right now. It's not. When I ran my half marathon, I wore the Adidas Evo SL, which is a training shoe. It's a light training shoe, but at the average pace that I was going to average, which is above 6 minutes, by the way, I wasn't taking advantage of anything remotely close to what this is built for. In fact, I'm increasing my chances of injury because I'm spending over 3 hours for a marathon. I didn't run the marathon, but it was half marathon equivalent pacing. I'm spending over 6:30 pace in that shoe. I can run in a regular training shoe at that pace. Hell, my training runs in college were 7-minute pace, and I was wearing training shoes. I wasn't wearing these. Surely now at 34 years old, I surely don't need to be in that shoe right now. I'm not saying that I can't get there, but if I'm not doing it, surely someone running 8-minute pace shouldn't be doing it either. And so I'll get off my segue. I know that's a hot take. I'm not saying that you can't wear this at some point, but if you are running a 4-hour marathon or faster, I, as a coach, would recommend you not to be in a super shoe because you're not taking advantage of that shoe. You're spending way too much time on the course in that shoe and you're increasing your chances of injury. And I would equate that to when I coached high school. I would have athletes' parents come up to me and go, why aren't you recommending a spike for my son? Why are you telling them to run in training shoes for their 5K? Well, because they're running 25 minutes for a 5K, sir or ma'am. They're not going to capitalize on a spike, which you could see on my wall there. That's got literally nothing in it.
Nothing.
And you're jogging at that point, which everyone is at a different point. I coach all my athletes specifically to their needs, and your son or daughter is not taking advantage of what that spike offers. So why would I recommend that? Yeah, then you're yelling at me because they have shin splints. Well, because they shouldn't have been running in that shoe to begin with. So everything has its time and purpose. But that's the problem is that they're not being advertised as that. You can do a quick Google search, and if you ask ChatGPT, I want to be fast at running, it'll tell you, you should run in this shoe. And you shouldn't because you're just going to get injured. And so I'm not saying that you can't run in that shoe, but everything has its time and place. And unfortunately, social media has a ton of misinformation that's being pumped out regarding these shoes to the point where people don't really know the difference. I'm not saying that you currently can't wear this shoe. I'm saying that it has a time and place and a specific athlete in mind. And so keep that in mind because at the end of the day, injury is what's going to stop you from getting faster, not the shoe, you know?
Yeah. So when we started this conversation and you were kind of giving your opinions, we mentioned something happened with your cousin, and what reminded me of it is a quick Google search of what's the best running shoe. And correct me if I'm wrong, something happened where he Googled something or he went to a store. Give a little more context of that because he's, was he in high school?
Yeah.
You know, he's like the typical runner who, typical athletic kid who's just probably trying to take a next step in running, and this is his experience now with a running shoe, with a super shoe.
Yeah, so he hit me up and was like, hey, I'm trying to get faster at running. He's, doing his thing. And I was like, well, what are you running in? He's complaining about shin splints. And so I was like, all right, what are you running in? And he sends me this shoe. So he's currently running in this shoe. And I just remember laughing at his message. And I go, you can't be serious. What made it worse is that he had a Superfeet insole in the shoe.
Oh my god!
So he somehow managed to put a Superfeet insole in the shoe. And this is what we mean about misinformation, right? Because then he got this idea from Google, right? Or ChatGPT, one of the two. When I was like, yeah, brother, well, you have shin splints because you're jogging in a marathon racing shoe. And you're probably running like 9-minute pace. He was. No shame on him for that, but he's just not wearing the right shoe for that. So he's having all sorts of problems. So then I go, hey man, go down to your local run specialty store. And so he did. And they sold him on a shoe. It wasn't the best shoe, which I will tell you in the run specialty industry, not every running store is good, right? This is a hot take from Gil. Not every running store that you see is good. And they're going to try and sell you on certain things. So do your due diligence and do some research on these places before you go buy. But it is 100% the right place to go buy. But you should be getting fitted, your gait being analyzed, whether you're an overpronator, whether you supinate, foot strike, type of arch, and your gait. If they can't give you that kind of feedback, it might not be the store for you. Doing so, he found out that he is an overpronator. So when all weight is on one foot, his ankle rotates inward past the normal amount that it should go, which throws off your mechanics, starts
Fellow
giving issues.
overpronator here.
Yep.
So, yep.
Starts giving you issues with your shins, knees, etc. And so we got him in the right shoe, but that is a perfect example of one, why it's important to do your research and go get fitted for shoes. Two, the dangers of social media and these shoes. And three, why BDRC and Runner's Mouth exists is to be able to talk about these things and give our audience more information that isn't being talked about enough. It is not being talked about enough on social media right now about why this shoe is not for everyone. All you hear about is new technology. You hear about coolness. You hear about the next big thing, but it's not for everyone. It's not. If you're just now getting started with running, and we hope that our audience is bringing in people that want to get into running and learn more about running, then this message is for you. Take the time to go get fitted for running shoes, to find the right running shoe for you so that you can train in it, develop healthy habits, develop a good training plan, build off of that. And one day I'm sure you are going to be capable of wearing that shoe in your race if it's for you, but it won't be for everyone. And that's just the fact about it. Be smart, be healthy.
Can I piggyback off that and tell a little bit about my marathon experience? Because I think it validates what you're saying to a personal level, obviously. So, I former collegiate runner, obviously I fit in the category of someone who, as they're starting to train for a marathon, could wear a super shoe with a goal of, sub 3 marathon. And I had 10 years of shin splint injuries and some stress fracture issues that I was dealing with after college. Then when I decided it was my time to finally give the marathon a shot this past fall, and then I ran my marathon a couple months ago, I was nervous to try on a super shoe. I was nervous. There was a lot of nerves. I was nervous about everything regarding the marathon. I really didn't know if my body would be able to handle the training. We could get into that's a different conversation. It did, thankfully. Yeah. We'll talk about physical therapy. We'll talk about prehab, rehab, all of that in other episodes. But super shoe specifically, I was like, when I was planning my jersey and my shorts and my socks and everything that I was going to be planning out what I was going to be racing in, I came to the time of what shoes am I going to be racing in, and I was like, okay, it's going to be a super shoe, and I was nervous to try it on for the first time and take it I was excited too, but I didn't know what that was going to do to my body. And I'm really glad I limited the amount of time I was wearing that shoe. I ran a half marathon in the Nike Alpha Fly 3. Now, one thing I didn't like that shoe that much. It's not too fair to the Alpha Fly 3 or Nike. I think I was wearing a size too small. I'm an 8.5. And I think I got an 8, which was silly. I definitely needed to get a 9. So that didn't help me. That's neither here nor there. The shoe was pretty stiff. It propelled me a lot. But man, I did not like how I felt at like mile 9, 10, 11. I'm trying to think, like my knees were hurting much more than they normally would. My shins were hurting. Obviously, my toes were all messed up because the shoe was too small. But then I ran in the On Cloud Boom Strike, and I loved that shoe for my marathon. And so double the distance, and my feet felt great. My knees felt great. I had other issues going on. I almost passed out, but that's just hitting the wall in a marathon. But leg-wise, I felt awesome. So I found the shoe for me. But during my training and my workouts, I ran in a super shoe between the Nike Alpha Fly 3 and the Boom Strike, the Cloud Boom Strike. I did less than 6 workouts in them total because like Gil has been hammering home, I had some pretty severe knee inflammation going on throughout my training that I really needed to calm down, and some bad Achilles pain. What if I had my Achilles pain, I was rocking a shoe in my mile repeats, rocking a super shoe with mile repeats? All I'd be doing is delaying I might have to pull out of the marathon training. So right. I was trying to train smart, and I limited the amount of time. So that's just a personal testament to You gotta limit it. There's a time and a place for these shoes. And yeah, I'm a fast runner, faster than the average person, but I have no business doing any type of training run in that shoe. I kept it for very specific, like I did a 13 mile, pretty much a time trial about 2 or 3 weeks before the marathon. I ran the super shoe, and then I did a couple of the mile repeats, and that was it. I probably, I said I did it like 5 or 6 times. That was probably almost too much. So limit it and train smart. Back to what you were saying. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's, I think, again, I can't stress this enough. You really have to understand where you are in your running journey before you get into something like this. From a cost perspective, it's a pretty big investment. There's no point in getting something that you don't necessarily use the benefits of. It would be like me. I recently got into cycling to kind of offset some of the injuries I have. There's no need for me to go all out and get this elite time trial bike if I'm just using it to go for a ride on a Sunday, right? A normal bike will do the same for less. Sure, you could have it, but there's the risk of injury with these shoes. That's an added thought process that you got to have as someone who is either getting into running or getting back into it or looking to get pretty, serious about it. As a coach, I'm telling you, probably not for you if you're just starting off, right? Get to a point where you feel comfortable. To your point, David, you ran in college, you took some time off, you made your comeback, and then now you're training for a sub-3 marathon. It's totally warranted to have a super shoe to give you, again, a legal performance enhancer. Right. But if you're running, again, hot take here from Gil, if you're running a 4-hour marathon or slower, I don't think you need that. I think you're doing yourself more harm than good. But neither here or there, we can talk about that in later episodes.
So, Gil, I think we could do a 2-hour podcast about super shoes, and I know for sure we're going to have some of our brand reps and coaches and medical professionals we have some guests lined up very soon. I know that we're going to be able to bring this up to them, and they're going to be able to give, a medical professional, I want to hear that take and the details that they have. And this is one of the hottest topics right now in running, and I'm excited to dive deeper into it. But for now, I think we covered it. We covered the super shoe boom, and that's it for episode 2. We really appreciate everyone tuning in. Please subscribe, rate, review. We are at Runner's Mouth on all socials, and we're going to talk to you next week.